Hello, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. At least over here, it started to get chilly, which is sort of nice as a change of pace. And I think in osquery land, probably the big announcement is we cut 450. So that's pretty exciting. It's got Windows 32 support. It's got ARM64 support. It's got a bunch of contributors. So thank you, everyone. There are packages in the core channel on Slack, so feel free to hop in and help test. Often we start these meetings by saying if there are any questions, issues, PRs that anyone from the larger community wants to bring up. If anyone's feeling stuck on anything or curious about something, how's a time for people to raise it?
I haven't seen any Windows packages on the core channel yet, and I'm wondering whether we plan to be publishing 32-bit packages or we're just announcing that there's that support now and users can build their own. Was that a decision that we made?
My recollection is that we are not planning on publishing Windows 32 or ARM64 packages. We might upload them to a channel if someone takes that on, but that's kind of there in the background until we have a better answer. The lack of Windows packages is going to be because no one's built them. Nick's pretty inactive right now, so maybe I can try and build Windows packages, or we can ping Nick or something.
Okay, great. That sounds good. So the Windows 32 will be consistent with the ARM64, and that makes sense to me.
Hopefully this will all change in the future, but at least right now I don't think we have real plans for it. As a brief announcement, I guess actually two announcements, one announcement, two announcements for the crowd. Apple has approved us for Apple Silicon dev hardware. So I've got some in the mail. Don't know how to get anyone access, hasn't shown up yet. Don't know anything, but expect chattering in either macOS or Core once that shows up on my desk.
Seth, is that, when you say us, are you referring to Collide or are you referring to the osquery project?
Both, actually.
Okay, great.
So I'm referring to the osquery project is having Apple Silicon dev hardware show up. It was paid for by Collide, so thanks, Collide. But it is ours. And great. Once it shows up, I'll probably figure out how to get us access to it and how to maybe I'll try and spin up an Azure agent or something. I don't know yet. Might just give you all SSH access and be like, meh.
Sounds good. Thanks for doing that.
So that's exciting. And then the other small announcement is that sorry, I'm trying to remember a name. Benjamin Horenschmidt, who did the last bit of the ARM64 work, encouraged us to apply to Amazon for various credits. So I have applied to Amazon for dev credits as an open source project so that we can hopefully get AWS Gravitron 2 machines. We'll see. It's all, I don't know. Don't know how to connect that AWS machines to CI yet, but hopefully we'll have some choices there once we get more resources.
On that side, there is you can download an agent from Azure. Well, I think I might have to do it, or I don't recall what kind of information it asks, but yeah, You have to download this binary. You can install it. It will be probably a package in the case of ARM64. So
There's some interesting prior art that I've seen in the Envoy project from CNCF, which I have open somewhere in a browser tab. They've got some scripting around baking AMI images with the Azure agent to spin up EC2 things. So there's a little bit of kind of nice prior art that maybe we can recycle.
So you mean provide images with already the Azure agent installed on that? Okay, I see.
Yeah, I don't know if we can just use them or if we just need to like lift their scripts and implement them, but there's at least a sort of a sister group that has running ARM64 in AWS for Azure. Probably small announcements from me. Anyone have other things they'd like to announce? A short meeting.
So this is not an announcement, but I'm interested in maybe pushing toward a current version of macOS on the CI, and that means fixing some test cases. And this is kind of like to get us ready for Big Sur.
Put up a PR.
I just created a label for Big Sur, so now we have a macOS Big Sur label, but the Catalina label still has like 5 issues attached to it about tables not working. So that'll take an effort because I'm assuming all of those continue not to work, plus a couple of new ones. But I did run through all the tests yesterday on the latest beta, and I can say that 95% of the tests passed. That's pretty good. A couple of the things that failed are kind of known to be problems, like the Wi-Fi tests table, the Wi-Fi table test. I'm not sure if it's testing something deterministic. I know that Wi-Fi status changes, and if it's testing it, one way and then another way and trying to determine if there's consistency, it's going to come up with inconsistencies. Mm-hmm. But I haven't analyzed it yet. But anyway, there's that one. And there's a couple of tools integration tests that fail, but one of them is related to ASL, which might have been deprecated, so that could be why it's failing. And I don't think the tests that I ran included any of the event publishers, so that's another thing to be aware of. But so I guess I can open up a single issue with the list of Big Sur things, or should there be multiple issues?
I would probably suggest multiple issues.
Okay.
A single issue, yeah, I would say sort of what's our CI running on now? Do you happen to remember?
It's 10.14, so it's I can't remember what was that?
Before 14 is Mojave.
And
Mojave.
I don't recall.
I think I see there's sort of a couple things. One of them is when, if ever, do we need to update the build machine? Because we try and generally have a lagging build, right? And then sort of a different piece of that is how do we test tables and how do we patch tables? And we have so far been able to avoid, I think, dramatic divergence based on macOS version. I don't know hopefully we can keep avoiding compile time divergence there. But we may find that that's not going to be true much longer. I don't know.
Well, we have the targeted minimum build of 10.11, so
Right.
it's still possible. So yeah, it's just a one binary, if that's what you mean.
Well, what I mean is, since we're targeting, at some point we will probably see features or build options that are incompatible with 10.11 or 10.12 or 10.13 or 10.14, and then we'll have to decide, what do we build? We get to keep ignoring the problem, but it'll happen someday.
Yeah. Well, the reason for maybe wanting a newer CI runner is to discover the problems that we might create that only affect the current version of the OS. If we were to check in a bug that didn't manifest on 10.14, but does on 10.15, there are some bugs like that now, right? And then we want to discover it in CI.
Yeah, I mean, you want to just PR a runner on Catalina?
It'll fail. I mean, it'll
Then
fail
we'll fix
until we
it.
fix it. Yeah, okay. So don't let that runner fail the build, is what you mean.
I mean, the first way to fix it, right, is to get it into the CI system, and then we'll see the failures, and we'll start fixing them. Once we get them all fixed, then it won't fail again, right?
So now, do we host like a bare VM, or does it provision the VM from some sort of install image from scratch, or?
It's a VM, I think, but anyway, it's provided by Microsoft. So yeah, we first have to simply update the version shown. But there's a thing I recall. I mean, nothing that can be solved, obviously, but I recall there were some compilation issues using the newest Xcode. So
I didn't see any.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Did you try?
I built with Xcode 12, which is in beta, and it built fine, with the exception of those few tests that didn't work. And then I also built with the newest Xcode currently in release, which is 11 dot something 7. So they seem to work, unless there's a warning I didn't see. Do you recall what you remember what didn't work?
It was, I think it might have been PR we did anyway that was let me just a second. No, I don't recall it. It was some time ago, so probably it was something we have already fixed, because it wasn't a compile issue on the oldest Xcode, but it was still giving issues. Let me see. I only recall, so okay, I have to find my pull request. I recall I had to fix the Xcode version to 11.3 something, I think, because at a certain point they updated Xcode to a newer version than that, and it wasn't compiling anymore. I will try to find it. But yeah, if it works on your machine now, it means it maybe was only an Xcode issue.
Okay. It's I've built osquery from time to time, of course, on the latest version of Xcode, and never seen any issue. All right, so I'll look into that Azure Pipelines PR then. We don't have a milestone goal of supporting Big Sur yet, because it doesn't exist yet exactly, but
So I think I ran a build, and I can definitely download and run things on Big Sur.
Yeah, I can too. So it'll be unofficially supported at least at release.
Yeah, I mean,
That's something that
I feel
people can-
reasonably confident. The thing I'm most nervous about is, so I'm checking to see if I run a build. The thing I'm most nervous about is how Apple Silicon works. Okay, I have built on Big Sur. So Big Sur builds fine.
Yeah, me too. And that's as of yesterday with the 4.5 code base and the latest beta.
Yeah, the thing I feel most worried about is just how does there's a bunch of stuff about binary stitching together the ARM64, the Apple Silicon, and the x86 binaries to avoid having to run through like a Rosetta style translation, which I think will work with plain Mako binaries, but until I actually get hardware in front of me to test, it's hard to know.
We had the hardware already, and we couldn't build successfully because I think some dependencies. But there's something we might want to document first.
Well,
Boost. Boost is not
yeah.
recognizing the architecture, and so there is some assembly that which do not compile correctly.
I hope Boost decides to support this soon.
Yeah, we're probably not going to get into the fixing of assembly in Boost, I'm guessing.
So
Is it inline assembly they're doing?
Yeah, it's Boost context. The library which is given issues. Don't recall. Let me. I have to find also these through our Slack chat. In our Slack chat, because I'm not entirely sure why it was trying to detect anything about it, since it should be a fixed configuration.
So worst case scenario, we would recommend people to just run the x86 binary in the compatibility mode.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the first thing we'll probably see, but it would be probably good to get it all native going. One thing that I don't know if we'll have to think about it, but maybe we'll probably will, is internally, we basically refer to macOS as Darwin. We don't really have any sense of architecture attached there. So I don't think we need a resolution, but like a thing to ponder is what do we want? Darwin underscore ARM64? Do we want something else? What is there a de facto standard yet?
Yeah, I don't know. Darwin refers to the kernel, right? And it's going to still be called that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
My suggestion is facetious. Never mind.
I like it.
All right. Should we talk about the next milestone? What we intend to? What are our goals?
A little while ago, Teddy was suggesting that we try and focus a little bit on cloud stuff. I don't think we've managed to have any focus on cloud stuff, but it was a nice idea.
Such as what? The tables that enumerate cloud stuff?
We never defined anything.
Oh. Just heard that the cloud was hot right now.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So I was watching a talk by Microsoft engineers, and something they said was that when the number of bug issues in the bug tracker exceeds 5 times the number of engineers available to work on them, that they make a focus of one release cycle to do technical debt. I think we're pretty far above that. We're like an order of magnitude higher than that, and I don't know maybe if technical debt needs to be addressed.
It's a good suggestion.
Maybe not all the issues are, equal validity or merit, but I don't know. We do keep punting a few of them to the next milestone each time. I'm looking at some of them now in the 4.6.
I think it would be pretty reasonable to spend some time trying to filter down the issues.
I guess if we were going to triage, then maybe we would triage around a particular theme just to scope it a little bit. And my initial thinking was like catch up with Mac OS, but of course there's other goals that we might have.
I mean, to be honest, I think Mac OS is going to kind of eat some of our attention between Big Sur and Apple Silicon and ARM64. Like, the reality is that stuff's just going to be there.
Sorry, just a comment about the previous boost thing argument. It's not. So the issue is that actually we are asking, because we give the fixed list of source files for boost to compile, we are telling to compile x86-64 assembly files, that version. And I'm not sure if there are the ARM version works for macOS 2, but yeah, if Boost doesn't have the detection in their build system, again, it might not work. So we can try to switch files and detect the fact that it is an ARM machine, etc. But I'm not sure if it will compile anyway.
That's a pretty big dependency that probably a lot of people will be interested in seeing run and build. So I'm a little bit more hopeful about that happening without our effort. What about our smaller dependencies, though? Did we have any issues with them? Things that might fall back on us if nobody's actively working on them? Did it just hit Boost because alphabetically it came first?
Yeah, there are other things that use assembly. I don't have. Wait, do I have the source code? On the top of my head, I don't recall them right now. So, although in theory, since macOS on ARM exists, there should be a version of them, because those libraries, I think the one that use assembly should be pretty common system operative system libraries. So.
Does the CMake allow us to continue to build dependencies after one failed? Is that something we can do? Like, can I just traverse to another directory and try to build there?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can just build single targets. So Boost will be third-party _ Boost. If we want to try to compile something else, you can do third-party _ the rest of the target name, or move inside its folder and do the same.
Okay. So I can log into our ARM Mac and try that just to see what else is on the pile there besides Boost. So from the trail of this side, we had a couple of objectives, like high-level objectives recently, and that was continuing to improve eventing performance, since every client seems to want to use events, and they turn up all the knobs until it fails. So we need to improve probably the event user documentation, and the event subsystem, something that Alessandro had started working on. The eBPF stuff is related to eventing as well. So that was closer to being done, so he's finishing that. And then maybe the eventing subsystem improvements again. So that's kind of a big theme. I mean, it's a theme, it's a client-driven theme.
Do you need anything from us on that? I mean, I'm always happy to see Trail of Bits doing work making osquery better.
Well, other than testing and PR feedback, I guess nothing needed from the communities per se. It's just throwing it out there for discussion as one of these roadmap items.
I think we're not so rigorous about roadmaps that if y'all want to be doing some work because it's client driven, like we're not going to say no. I mean, it sounds like good work.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I guess none of us has that much autonomy to choose things to do during the month, since we're more or less busy finding other people's needs.
I mean, if you were like, well, you know, does the community want us to do X or Y? Like, we could talk about it. But if you're like, we've got customers and they want us to fix events, like, what? If I tell you no, what are you going to do?
No, fork it again. We don't want to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've seen issues in the past when someone went to change the event system or kind of the backing of the event system, and that changed the guarantees that we had around consistency, right? So as far as I'm concerned, if you're making improvements to that system without making any changes to the sort of guarantees that we make, then it's just, you know, hands down good stuff. If making those changes requires changing those kind of guarantees, then I would encourage, let's definitely talk about those things some before getting into that, to make sure that it's compatible with the project's goals.
I can explain a little more about it. So we were originally focusing in consistency of data. But when the big refactor happened at Facebook, the experimental branch, some of the integrity guarantees have been relaxed quite a bit. Additionally, not using the transactions correctly and batching means that even with the correct settings, we still risk losing data. So the refactor aims to first remove the index from the database and rebuild it from scratch in memory every time a query opens, so that we can improve performances. And second, only store data and store it correctly, so we do not lose it in case of a crash or something happening on the process. So we are actually trying to improve both performances and consistency.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that sounds great.
Yeah, of course, it's
stuff that
the plan is to get something up and running. We already have a demo, but there are some issues with exploration. No, I'm sorry, optimization.
sounds like the stuff you've been talking about for a little while. So
yeah,
I'm excited to see it whenever it lands.
Yeah, so the idea was to get something up and running, and then I mean, we do not pretend to merge it as it is. The idea was to give a demo, so you and Teddy can have a look at it, see if it works, then do some profiling, maybe make sure that the performances are better, and then consider merging it.
Sounds great.
I mean, we didn't want to just replace it for the sake of it, so we wanted to gather some data and get your opinion.
Oh, sounds great.
So what's the next part of our meeting here?
That's basically it. If we want to, we can look at old PRs.
Hmm.
It's not that many of them up right now.
17 PRs now. Yeah, not too bad.
Teddy went on a pretty good tear a little while ago. You've still got the systemd stuff in flight. Where did that land?
It's backburnered. We
Okay.
wanted to make some CMake fixes to it, but the intern we had wasn't to CMake versatile, so it had to wait for somebody else to have time. I'm really interested in the endpoint security pull request. Hoping that we can finish that out and collaborate with Upticks on that. But
So
what changes requested?
So for endpoint security, my understanding is we would need to basically pick a bundle identifier and start distributing a profile.
So we would want a development profile, and we would want to add as many people who are interested to use it, but they'd have to join the team. That's okay. There's no like per developer seat cost for the team, I don't think. So in other words, I think
No, I mean, if we actually want to ship code.
Oh yeah, if you ship code, then you need a distribution profile, which is called the application ID profile. And then that should be controlled by members of core or committee members or something.
So whenever I go looking at this, I always find myself just getting tangled up in just all the boilerplate, effectively. So if I think about this, I think that we would need to create a bundle ID, which is trivial. We just have to decide on one.
An app ID, yeah.
I think they're called bundle IDs.
So the bundle ID is formed from the app ID, but yeah.
Oh, okay, so we need an app ID.
But you make an identifier in the team portal. So
right, exactly.
That's a step. Yeah.
And then we tie a profile to that, and then we shift our builds and code signing to using that stuff, which I think is basically the demarcation point for osquery 5, is when we change our identifier and signing from Facebook to osquery.
Yeah.
That's basically what we decided 5 would be as a general way for people who pin those things to have that demarcation.
Is there any challenge in using a different signing certificate?
No, it's just the work to do it.
Okay. If there's unknowns in the endpoint security provisioning profile, ask me. I've done this all year at this point.
So if we wanted to do this, so I would say if you hang issues under the osquery 5.0 milestone, that's the right place to do this. Because that milestone is effectively about what do we have to do to move the code signing over? What do we want to do to move the code signing over?
Oh, okay. Maybe it's under the build package sign pipeline?
I mean, that might be a thing. I don't know if that's a thing that has to be a prerequisite. Sorry, say that again?
The update code copyright blocks issue, wasn't that?
Yeah, I did that. You can close an issue if there's still one.
Oh yeah, close an issue. I love doing that.
Yeah, I feel like it would be nice if we had a better code sign pipeline. At some point, we may decide that we'll just cut over to using the osquery org's developer certificate, even without that, because it's better to have something than not.
So being able to sign with it and having it sign in the CI are separate goals.
Yeah, I'd say that could be true, yeah.
If we're manually signing now with Facebook's cert, I guess my question is, isn't it trivial just to sign with a different one?
Yeah. They're just deciding to do it.
Okay. Well, got it. I guess I sense that it's a dependency for the goal of using an endpoint security capable build, since that would require switching to this new cert.
I think so. So we could probably start just plumbing through things like, where do we want the profile to live? What has to change in the build process, even if we don't change the signing stuff? How do we sort of foresee that working?
But nothing changes in the build except the signing.
Yes, the signing stuff is weird right now. I don't understand that part. Like, we have it kind of disabled in CMake, but it maybe doesn't have to be. I don't understand that part of our pipeline at all.
Signing isn't part of the pipeline, is it?
Are you talking about signing? Yeah, macOS. It's not used. Yeah, there are some variables in CPAC that you can set to specify which identity to use, and so that it uses the keychain. But given that, yeah, no, they are not used right now. It's I think Teddy opening the PKG file and then redoing them again, signing the binaries, signing the package, and yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what's happening. And I feel like if we wanted to do this sort of well, we really want to get it into CI one way or another.
It's not really easy to implement full signing with CMake. We had an issue with the provisioning profiles, which are really hard to integrate. In signing whenever you do not use Xcode, it is hard to get the provisioning profiles to work correctly. And I'm not sure you can do everything with CPAC alone, because we have to sign osquery, and we have to notarize it, and we have to create the package, and then we have to notarize the file. So it's like multiple steps. And I did end up implementing this correctly with CMake, but only when we use Xcode as a backend. I wasn't able to make this work with Ninja or Makefiles.
What do you happen to remember what? So I don't use Xcode for any of the flow over in Collide. I haven't had to look at profiles yet, but we do sign and notarize everything.
Yeah, so the signing worked perfectly until we started trying to use endpoint security. So we were used to start the code sign binary, pass the correct variables, and make it work. But as soon as we started using endpoint security, we started requiring these provisioning profiles, and I couldn't find a way to easily plug this into the process.
So underneath, we're still relying on the same signing tool, CodeSign. I mean, Xcode uses the same tool that CMake would use, and there's nothing that ought to prevent being able to do it from CMake, except making sure that we do it the same way Xcode does it. The only thing that probably complicated it for us was that we had a multi-target project, and we were building and signing components together. Assuming that we don't have an app bundle at all, and we just have the agent, the same binary that we do now, and we only sign one thing, it should be simpler.
My understanding matches yours on this, Mike. You know, it's ultimately just a code sign invocation. I just don't know CMake. I thought there was like a little shell script that CMake used as like a hook for this.
Yeah, if anyone can figure out the correct parameters for code sign, then we are good. I didn't try to debug how Xcode works. Yeah,
there's a setting where you can view the output of Xcode with all of the verbosity to show you what the Xcode invocation was exactly.
I briefly looked at the parameters you could pass to code sign, and I didn't find what I needed.
I can probably look at it.
So here's what we can do. If you can get CMake to build Apple's endpoint security sample, then you can get it to build an osquery with the same code in it. It's the same challenge. So
I think it'd be better if I just tried to build this branch, honestly.
yeah. Well, if it's validly signed and will run, then that's halfway.
Yeah.
You don't need to be using the entitlement. If you build with entitlement, and the code that uses it, so the PR that Charvel wrote, if it's not even merged yet, you're still good. We're still testing this. The signing is done correctly. In other words, if you're signed in correctly, you're not allowed to run at all. So it doesn't matter if you actually do the thing that you need the entitlement for.
So
Actually,
I was able to build my programs with CMake in a way that they would run, but will not correctly connect to endpoint security. And that's the issue.
Okay, well, I guess there is more than one way to fail.
Yeah, and the
Usually
frame is not useful, like at all.
No, it's not. No, you have to know all of the things it could be and check them all. But we would like to start addressing that. So we'll collaborate with Charvel in a week or two.
There's a second way maybe to do this. I'm not sure how it works. I'm not an expert on Xcode, but it seems like it is possible to have Xcode import an existing binary and then just sign it. So we could.
I don't want Xcode.
Me neither.
I really don't want Xcode in our builds.
But yeah, that's the fallback solution if there is really no way to use the
we don't need Xcode. I am like 99% sure we don't need Xcode. All right, I will help put effort into making that happen. Do you have any? I guess I should find a sample binary or something. Do you have any like sample CMake binaries?
You can provide something like a little test that connect to endpoint security.
Yeah, that'd be great. If you send me some sample code, then I can see what I can do. Yeah, I'm happy to take a look at that. I guess I know I've seen some stuff, maybe Objective-C's code. And yeah, we can we'll try and figure it out. But I feel like this should be reasonably. It shouldn't be that hard.
The steps to do it correctly are short, but the ways you can go wrong are many. That's kind of the issue.
Yeah. People thought notarization was hard too until we all figured it out. So
yeah. Zach, did we move the blacklist tech terminology fully out, right?
Yeah, that's done. We're on allow list, deny list everywhere that I'm aware of.
Okay, closing that issue. We're making such great progress today.
I think maybe if anyone has a few minutes that they want to peruse old issues for, it's always a good time.
You mean like start at the very end?
I usually start in the middle, but whatever.
October's coming. Do we want to do an Oktoberfest? Hackafest? Hack October? We have to plan for that because last time we were like, planning.
What would we plan?
Oh, yes. Last time, what we did, we tagged the easy issues, right? But we didn't really have anything beyond that.
I could stream myself coding if it's like useful. We could try to implement something.
Maybe I can get
My
Joe
goal
to
is-
give us like an IRAD day or two.
Yeah, my goal here was to not like have. Yeah, of course we want people to join the project, but also like make it more visible. Trying to make an event, so at least with us.
So the goal of trying to close out old issues is somewhat opposite the goal of trying to have good first time issues.
Yeah, we wouldn't do hard things under the Hacktoberfest theme.
Right, but if we want to close out a bunch of old issues, the obvious way to do that is to simply close the ones that we don't really need to track, like flaky tests, and fix the ones that are low-hanging fruit, because some of them we can just fix in 10 minutes.
Yeah, the 10-minute ones would be great. The flaky tests, are they still
I don't-
there?
I mean, there are issues. I don't think we need
I mean,
issues.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Are all of those issues still out there? Because I'm paging through from the back.
Oh, yeah, there's a couple. I'll bulk close them all. They're all Trail of Bits issues. Bye, Trail of Bits.
You mean
Flaky tests were ours? I thought those were all opened by the guy that did the
Stefano and
experiment.
Alessandro.
so sorry, why do we want to close them?
Either
Yeah.
they pass CI or they don't. Why do I care about an issue? It's just noise.
It's something to fix.
Yeah, it means we don't
So-
know if it's a bug in osquery, or at least an issue, only an issue in the test. So I would expect we want to fix them, not
Is the
close
test
them.
enabled or disabled?
Sorry,
Is the test enabled or disabled?
enabled.
They can't
It's
be so
just-
flaky then because they're passing.
Do they sometimes
Well,
pass?
the definition of flaky is that it sometimes passes and sometimes don't. It's not determined.
I mean, I think it adds serious friction to people who are trying to get things merged if you have to rerun CI and it takes an hour because the flakes are testy.
No,
The tests are flaky.
absolutely. But I'm under the impression that we don't have that problem today. Like CI generally runs successfully.
Yeah, but the fact that a bug doesn't show itself every time doesn't mean that the bug doesn't exist until you are sure that there's no bug. And it's, I mean, either way, I say that we should have a look at them, because either it's a bug in a query that just doesn't show itself on the CI often, or it's an issue in the test, which
Wasn't this about
I feel is
Python?
important. Sorry?
Wasn't this about Python and the fixes you were making?
No, not necessarily. There might be one about that happening in the Python scripts, which might be, but it wasn't always. Might be how the test framework is written right now for Python, which is a bit buggy. But at the same time, we did have issues in the shutdown procedure, for instance, for osquery, which the Python tests were catching. So I'm a bit opposed on the idea of closing these issues. They have to be fixed.
Yeah, I'm opposed to it too. But what I recall we closed all of those issues that just said add more tests to component ABC.
Yeah.
That there were like 100 something of those, and we recognize that as a continuing goal. So someone closed all of those, and I supported doing that since they overwhelmed the other issues that were more important.
If y'all want to keep these, I'll leave them for now. But
It's just a handful, aren't they?
Yeah, it's like 7.
Well, there's a Hacktoberfest goal right there.
Except they don't. I don't know. There's a little bit of a theory thing, right? Of like when you have something that fails so rarely that you're not forced to fix it, we're just tracking noise. Like it's just contributing to a backlog that no one's looking at. So if something is actually causing CI to fail, then people will turn around and fix it pretty promptly. But if it's just like, well, we saw this thing fail once, and like, was it a cosmic bit flip in the giant mess that is Azure, or do we actually have some flaky race condition? I don't understand if recording it is helping solve that.
I can assure you that all of them are not cosmic rays. I mean, I often see them turning out in either a test issue, which it's minor but still, and the other one was, for instance, the issue of the process time and how the time was taken since the machine uptime. Sorry. So that we have this difference in how the uptime is considered, which again might not be specifically a bug, but yeah.
Those aren't the tests. So here are the bugs that are in the flaky test category. Fix running apps test sanity failing on macOS localhost. Fix Python test 5 daemon SIGINT. Fix TLS enroll tests. Fix flaky logger test. Fix reliability of system controls test. Improve reliability of eBPF tests. Improve reliability of apt sources test. I recall the uptime thing you were talking about, and that's like a real, I don't know, it's not even a bug. It's like what do we want to do with this?
I'm not sure what's the list of those bugs, but I remember that some of these tests are really unreliable when running locally on my machine. I'm not sure if they're the same or not, but maybe we can check.
I mean, maybe this is best to follow up on chat where the links to the test can be presented, and we're about to hit our hour mark in any case.
Seems reasonable.
Because I remember one of the main issue we had when converting to CMake was that all the tests initially had been closely tailored to the Jenkins machine where they were running originally at Facebook. And as soon as we moved away from that, everything broke. And yeah, I don't think I'm always able to run all the tests locally, either on Windows or Ubuntu when developing.
Yeah, I don't want to be. Yeah.
I mean, my guess is also like since then we have rewritten vast parts of the app, completely changed CI and increased the number of platforms. Like there may be things that just never ran quite right.
What you mean? Sorry, I might have missed.
I was saying that since there were a lot of the application has changed since Facebook owned it, and it's not clear to me that these tests weren't flaky when Facebook ran them.
They most surely were flaky then by looking at them, but I don't know. The thing that the topic here for me is that those are a bit of a testament that we need to improve our tests and also have more of them actually. And I feel like that's just hiding the issue, just closing those issues, hiding the issue that is present.
Maybe. I will not change these for you. I will leave them. taking up space.
I hope someone will go and look them beyond me. If I have to say it
Hacktoberfest,
clearly.
right? Yeah, I think it would be nice if, since we've been pretty light on IRAD this year, if I can get some sort of Hacktoberfest day or two. I mean, plenty of companies do hackathon weeks, you know? So I'll float the idea. Okay, we are at the hour mark, and if we're kind of done with the scheduled agenda, shall we stop the recording?
Seems reasonable. We could call this one. I think we're all just chatting. Thank
Yeah, that
you
makes
all
sense to
for
me.
your time and your continued presence.